I recently got a comment on one of the photographs I shared on Instagram from a fitness shoot I did down in Manhattan Beach. And it reads, let me pull up the photo right here. It says, "This is beautiful. I love the color of the sky and the lighting you've used just balances it out perfectly. You must have been adjusting lighting the whole time." That compliment is from Tether Photo. Well, first of all, Tether Photo, thank you so much for the comment. I really appreciate it. And then another thing I want to mention is, no, I actually was not adjusting lighting the whole time. They were set up, and the reason why I wasn't adjusting the lighting the whole time is because I used one of these, a light meter. I know we all have digital cameras these days, but in this video I'll be going over the importance and the value a light meter brings to me when I'm prepared for my shoots and on set. What's going on, guys? Alexis here. In this video I'll be going over 4 reasons why and how I use a light meter and the importance and value it brings to me as a photographer. Reason number 1, why and how I use a light meter. It lets me test out my ideas beforehand to properly prepare for the day of the shoot, and lets me know what gear I need to bring and how much light loss I do when I have to execute an idea that I haven't done before. For example, for one shoot I knew I wanted to completely transform the ambient lighting during noon or 1 p.m. when the sun's highest in the sky, which is one of my favorite times to shoot. I knew I was going to have a ton of light loss for a few reasons. I knew I was going to stack up 3 to 4 color filters in front of my lens to completely change the mood and style of the ambient lighting, and I knew that I was going to have some light loss. And to counter that, I knew I would have to gel my lights heavily so the color of the lights wouldn't be the same as the color filters that I put in front of the lens. So in preparing for this shoot, by using a light meter and measuring the amount of light loss, I knew how many lights I would have to bring, and I knew that, a pair of B1s with a magnum reflector wouldn't be enough. Although the magnum reflector gives you an extra 2 stops of light, I was having so much light loss from all the gelling that I had to do and also all the filters I had in front of the camera. I knew I would have to bring out actually 4 B1s, use 2 in each side with a magnum reflector on each. So the amount of light loss I was getting with the gelling was about 1.5 stops for each of the lighting, and the amount of light loss I was also getting with the filtration in front of the camera was also another 1.5 stops to 2 stops. So I knew I would have to push around f/25 on the lights to get a proper exposure. And the reason why I knew all that prior is because I was able to test out all my lightings and all the light loss in the studio by measuring it with a light meter. Reason number 2, why and how I use a light meter. If you're a photographer, lighting is extremely important. If you're a professional and you come up with a good look, it's essential that you're able to recreate the look over and over again. And one of the reasons I use a light meter is because it helps me light by the numbers. What I mean by that is I love testing out my lighting and getting really creative. If I get a look that I really like or something that I've done that's really creative and different, I don't like to leave it to chance and like to be able to recreate the look over and over. With the light meter, I could actually light by the numbers. So I could put up all the lights, do all the testing that I want, and once I get a look that I really like, I could literally start measuring all the lights and seeing the exposures that I'm getting and just remember those or write them down. And that allows me to recreate the look over and over again exactly the same way, or change it up and vary it a little bit as I've done before. Here I use Photo B1s with magnum reflectors. On the second look, I was using power packs with grids. And on this third image, I was actually using Anthem 1 LED lighting. Although all the lights I used were different, what a light meter allows me to measure is even if my exposure is different, if my final f-stop is still different, I can still measure the lighting ratio and the difference in lighting output that I had in each light. Although my final exposure might be different, one could be at f11 with strobes, the other could be at f2.8 using cinema lights. I know the lighting ratio and the relationship between those lights, and I could keep that lighting ratio the same despite my exposure being different. And using the tool like a light meter allows me to know that information and being able to replicate the look over and over again. Reason number 3, why and how I use a light meter, is because it helps me be discreet and only bring out the amount of gear that I need when I'm on location. So the day of the shoot, when I walk out and check out the location we're about to shoot, the only thing I bring with me at first is a light meter, and I scout the entire area only with this. What this allows me to do is check the ambient light if we're in shadow or in direct sunlight, or this light meter in particular, what it has a spot meter. One of the main reasons I use the spot meter for is to measure the sky. Once I know the exposure for the sky, I know the settings that my lights have to be in if I want to balance my strobe with the sky or underexpose it. Normally I like to underexpose the sky by about 1/2 stop or a whole entire stop to get a nice deep blues. But once I know that number, it gives me an idea of the amount of lights that I have to bring out. I bring out the proper amount of gear that I need, make sure that the strobes match that exposure. Once I get that down, my lights are dialed in and my settings are dialed in, and I get to shooting and I get the results that I want a lot quicker than just guessing and testing. And reason number 4, a light meter helps me be a lot more efficient and quicker when I'm on set. When I have to do different setups or I have to change my lighting, it's a lot easier to go in there, measure the lighting one time, get the exposure proper, dial it in your camera, and start shooting. When you're on the other side of the camera, people tend to get impatient really quickly and time moves really slow. So I think one of the worst things you could do is when you're doing a shoot is grabbing your camera, doing the test shot, and then doing one of these. And having to do that a few times to dial in your lighting, and you can still be off a little bit, checking the back of the camera every time you do a shot. It's not the best interaction that you could have with your talent and with your subject. You're disconnecting with them. The quicker you could get your settings dialed in, the more you could interact with your talent, the better. So for example, in this shot, we originally had a grid spot boomed overhead. I wanted to change the look and make it softer, but instead of booming up an entire softbox, what I did was just put diffusion in front of the grid to soften up the light. And of course, you get light loss and that changes your exposure. I much prefer going up to my talent, getting a proper light reading, and doing that one time, then checking the back of the camera. That's also a great excuse to go up right next to your talent, and you could talk to them and interact with them and be more personable, as opposed to staying behind the camera the entire time and just taking a bunch of test shots, disengaging with them and looking at the back of your camera, seeing if you're guessing right or wrong. So there you go, guys. Those are 4 reasons why and how I use a light meter and how it brings value to me on my shoots and on sets. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below and I'll be more than happy to answer them. I'll also leave a link in the description to the light meter that I like using.